Mheshimiwa Rais Mohamed Ghazouani wa Jamhuri ya Kiislamu ya Mauritania na mwenyekiti wa Umoja wa Afrika. Wakati akija hapa tumpigie makofi ya kutosha. You're most welcome.
Mheshimiwa Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, Rais wa Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania, waheshimiwa wakuu wa nchi na serikali, mawaziri, Rais wa Benki ya Dunia, Rais wa Benki ya Maendeleo ya Afrika, mabibi na mabwana,
wabia na wadau wa kimaendeleo, wawakilishi wa sekta binafsi, mabibi na mabwana. Nina furaha sana kutoa hotuba hii mbele ya Mheshimiwa Rais Samia Suluhu Hassan, Rais wa Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania, na kutoka kwake natoa shukrani zangu kwa watu wa Tanzania kwa kunikaribisha mimi binafsi na wajumbe niliokuja nao, lakini pia pamoja na ukarimu tulioonyeshwa. Tunawashukuru sana wa wenyeji wa mkutano huu misheni 300 unaoratibiwa na Umoja wa Afrika, Benki ya Dunia na Benki ya Maendeleo ya Afrika. Lakini pia ninapenda kuonyesha shukrani zangu kwa marafiki zangu wa Benki ya Dunia na Benki ya Maendeleo ya Afrika, nikithamini kujizatiti kwao kuunganisha jitihada hizi katika kuhakikisha wa Afrika milioni 300 wanaweza kupata nishati safi, jadidifu na ambayo ni nafuu. Mabibi na mabwana, nishati kwa msingi na umeme unamaanisha msingi wa msingi kwa ajili ya kukua na maendeleo ya kiuchumi, lakini pia kuboresha maisha ya watu, na hasa ikipatikana kwa kiwango kikubwa, kuna matokeo chanya katika sehemu tofauti za maendeleo endelevu. Bara letu halitaweza kufikia malengo yake kwa ajili ya maendeleo ya kiuchumi na kiviwanda na kuondoa umasikini na kushughulikia changamoto za kimazingira isipokuwa kama tumeweza kushinda upungufu tulionao wa nishati. Leo tuna karibu Waafrika milioni 600 ambao hawana uwezo wa kupata umeme na bado wanategemea mafuta ya taa, na huu utatuzi. Umoja wa Afrika unatambua juu ya uhitaji wa kupata umeme na nishati ambacho ndio msingi kwa ajili ya maendeleo yote tunayoyafahamu. Nishati ina kazi muhimu sana katika umaskini na kuleta viwanda, kuleta fursa za ajira na kuhakikisha huduma za jamii zinapatikana ili watu wawe na maisha yenye utu. Na ndiyo maana Umoja wa Afrika chini ya Agenda 2023 tulikuwa na njozi ya pamoja katika kupunguza upungufu wa kupatikana kwa nishati hapa Afrika, na ndio maana tulianzisha miradi kadhaa kama vile ambao ni mpango kabambe wa umeme Afrika. Na kwa upande mwingine Umoja wa Afrika umeendelea kutoa fedha na kuhakikisha kuna uanuai wa washiriki wanaotoa nishati safi ya bei nafuu kwa watu ili iweze kuwafikia wengi. Na katika maana hiyo basi ya malengo yetu ya pamoja katika misheni 300 na uzinduzi wake leo kwa Benki ya Dunia na Benki ya Maendeleo ya Afrika, ndivyo vitu ambavyo wanavisimamia. Nadhani mkutano unataka kuhakikisha kwamba wa Afrika milioni 300 kwa umeme, na ni fursa ya pekee sana
kwa maana ya skeli bala ya kukuza sasa upatikanaji chini ya jangwa la Sahara hapa Afrika, ili tuweze kuhakikisha kwamba tunakuza uchumi na kutengeneza ajira. Mradi huu unahitaji uwekezaji mkubwa sana wa sekta binafsi, sekta ya umma, lakini pia sasa zinazotoa misaada na mashirikiano kati ya wadau tofauti. Unahitaji pia utashi wa kisiasa kutoka kwa nchi zetu za Kiafrika ili tuweze kuleta mageuzi yanayohitajika yatakayofanya kuna mazingira bora ya uwekezaji na kuchukua hatua ambazo zitahakikisha kwamba kuna uendelevu wa upatikanaji wa umeme na makampuni ya umeme. Kimsingi, kujizatiti huku na utashi wa kisiasa lazima wakisiwe katika maendeleo na utekelezaji wa kujitoa kwetu kitaifa kufikia malengo yetu ya nishati kama nchi wanachama. Na usikivu mahususi lazima utolewe katika hatua ya mwisho sekta binafsi zinawekeza أود أن أرحب بتوقيت kwamba tunapata tatuzi za nishati zilizo bora. Na ndio maana leo tunaenda kuona nchi 14 za Afrika, nchi wanachama zikitia sahihi kuonesha utashi wao wa kisiasa kuleta mabadiliko katika mifumo yao ya nishati. Kwa tunaomba nchi wanachama zikubali sasa baada ya kutia sahihi hapa kutengeneza mifumo katika nchi yao kwa ajili ya kushughulikia hili. Pia wabia wetu wote tunaomba waweze kuchangia kikamilifu kabisa na kuhamasisha rasilimali ili kuhakikisha kiufanisi tunakamilisha na kutekeleza mradi huu. Sisi Umoja wa Afrika tutafanya kila kinachowezekana kuhakikisha changamoto za nishati Afrika zinashughulikiwa. Ninatangaza kwamba mkutano huu umefunguliwa sasa na ninawatakia baraka na mafanikio. Tunamshukuru sana Rais wa Jamhuri ya Mauritania na ambaye pia ndio mwenyekiti wa Umoja wa Afrika kwa hotuba yake hiyo. Mheshimiwa Rais, niruhusu sasa niombe sisi wote tuweze kutazama video fupi kuhusu Tanzania, nchi ya Kilimanjaro, Zanzibar na Serengeti, na mwenyeji wa mkutano wa nishati wa wakuu wa nchi wa Afrika mwaka 2025.
Excellencies, she is the one who championed the Tanzanian Clean Cooking Initiative that included establishment of the Tanzanian Clean Cooking Strategy. Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, on the international stage, she has been instrumental in pushing the clean cooking agenda, including launching of African Women Clean Cooking Support Program during the COP28 in Dubai, co-chairing the Clean Cooking Conference in Paris, and the leadership in a number of other world stage energy-related initiatives. Excellencies, it is my honor now to invite our host, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan. Here in Tanzania, we call her Mama, to take the podium and address this historical gathering. Mheshimiwa Rais, karibu sana.
Please be seated. Thank you. Your Excellency, the African Union Chair and President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, Highnesses, Majesties, and Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Dr. Akina Deshina, President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Ajay Banga, President of the World Bank, Dr. Rajiv Shah, Rockefeller Foundation, Mr. Mukhtar Babayev, President of the COP29, Madam Amina Mohamed, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations and Chair of the UN Sustainable Development Group, heads of multilateral institutions here present, honorable ministers here present, members of the diplomatic corps, members of the press, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. M3. On behalf of the people and the government of the United Republic of Tanzania, I have the distinct honor and pleasure to welcome you to Dar es Salaam and to thank you for honoring our invitation. We are honored to host this African Heads of State Energy Summit, and we welcome the important deliberations on ensuring access to reliable and affordable and sustainable energy for all in Africa. With that being said, this summit goes beyond energy access. It is about empowering families, lifting millions out of poverty, and providing hope and opportunities for youth. It is about our commitment to economic transformation, fostering industries, creating jobs, and sparking innovation across Africa. And it is about realizing the promise of uplifting every African community to reach the last mile and ensure that no one is left behind. At present, nearly 600 million Africans who lack energy represent 83% of the global energy deficit. To give a contrast, the electrification rate in Southeast Asia reached 96.6% in 2019, while in Africa today, this rate is less than 50%. Additionally, Southeast Asia is on track to reach universal electricity access by 2030. While looking at the current pace of electrification in Africa, without a collective intervention, by 2030, as many as 545 million people will still be without electricity. Excellencies, in order to overcome hurdles impeding energy access, we need to take bold actions by increasing investment and financing for infrastructure development, from power generation to the last mile connectivity. And we must have an agreed roadmap among African states, our partners and private sector, keeping in mind that we have just 5 years to meet the SDG target, as ensuring access to affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy for all. This gathering is a platform to consolidate commitments, announce new partnerships, and drive momentum towards the 2030 goal. Together with the private sector, development partners, financial institutions, and civil society, we can bridge the energy gap through actionable energy compacts. At this summit, we also hope to get endorsement for the Dar es Salaam Energy Declaration to guide our efforts. It is for this reason that I salute Presidents Adesina of the African Development Bank and Ajay Banga of the World Bank, the Rockefeller Foundation, and the allied partners for ensuring the successful convening of this important and historical summit. I also wish to thank the honorable ministers responsible for energy, finance, and foreign affairs for diligent preparations. Excellencies, I'm aware that simultaneous interpretation is available in Swahili as well, and so allow me to proceed in my local language. Waheshimiwa wakuu wa nchi na serikali, wakuu wa mashirika ya kimataifa, waheshimiwa mawaziri, wageni waalikwa, mabibi na mabwana, Tanzania ni moja kati ya nchi 12 zitakazozindua mpango mahsusi wa kitaifa kuhusu nishati, National Energy Compact. Kupitia mpango wetu tunatarajia kuongeza kasi ya kuunganisha umeme nchini, hadi kufikia 72% ifikapo mwaka 2030. Ili kufanikisha azma hiyo, ndani ya muda wa miaka 5 ijayo, tutahitaji uwekezaji wenye thamani ya dola za Kimarekani bilioni 13, ambapo dola bilioni 5 zitapatikana kutoka sekta binafsi hapa nchini. Kupitia mpango huu, tumepanga kutekeleza mambo makubwa manne. La kwanza ni kuongeza uzalishaji wa umeme kutokana na nishati mchanganyiko, yani energy mix. Hadi sasa, Tanzania ina uwezo wa kuzalisha megawatts 3431, ambapo 58% ya hizo inatokana na vyanzo vya maji, 35% inatokana na gesi na 7% inatokana na vyanzo vingine. Shabaha yetu ni kuongeza megawatts 2463 za nishati kutokana na nishati ya jua, gesi asilia, upepo, joto ardhi na vyanzo vingine ifikapo 2030. Jambo la pili, kijiografia Tanzania ni kiungo muhimu katika kuunganisha mtandao wa umeme kwa nchi za Mashariki na Kusini mwa Afrika, Eastern African Power Pool na Southern African Power Pool, na hivyo kuwezesha biashara ya umeme kutoka Afrika Kusini hadi Misri. Tayari tumekwisha unganisha miundombinu ya umeme na nchi za Burundi, Kenya na Rwanda, na sasa tunaendelea kuunganisha miundombinu ya umeme na nchi ya Zambia na Uganda. Kuwepo kwa miundombinu hiyo itawezesha biashara ya nishati kati ya nchi za Jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki na nchi za SADC. Tanzania inayo nafasi ya kuuza umeme ikizingatiwa kuwa hadi mwezi Novemba 2024 mahitaji ya umeme nchini Tanzania yalikuwa megawatts 1888, wakati uzalishaji wetu ni megawatts 3431. Jambo la tatu ni kufikisha umeme kwenye vitongoji baada ya kufanikiwa kusambaza umeme katika vijiji vyote vya Tanzania. Mwelekeo wetu ni kuvifikia vitongoji vyote 64359. Hadi sasa tumeshavifikia vitongoji 32827 na kazi inaendelea katika vitongoji 20,000. Hivyo kupitia mpango huu tutaweza kukamilisha vitongoji 11,532 vilivyobakia. Jambo la 4 ambalo mpango huu utafanya ni kusaidia usambazaji wa nishati safi ya kupikia. Inakadiriwa watu 950 barani Afrika wanakosa nishati safi ya kupikia. Hali hii inaligharimu sana bara letu na inahusishwa na kuongezeka kwa umaskini, vitishio vya kiafya, uharibifu wa mazingira, kuongezeka kwa uzalishaji wa kaboni, kupotea kwa bioanuwai na kukosekana kwa usawa wa kijinsia. Nchini Tanzania, utegemezi wa kuni na mkaa kwa ajili ya kupikia ni zaidi ya 90%. Hatuwezi kupuuza madhara na gharama kubwa ya kutumia kuni na mkaa, hasa kwa afya na ustawi wa wanawake na wasichana. Katika kukabiliana na hili, Tanzania tumeweka mkakati wa kitaifa wa nishati safi ya kupikia unaolenga kupandisha kiwango cha matumizi ya nishati safi ya kupikia toka 10% ya sasa hadi 80% ifikapo mwaka 2034. Mpango mahsusi tunaozindua leo utasogeza karibu kufikia lengo hilo. Excellencies, to achieve the ambitious targets outlined in our National Energy Compacts, which will be soon presented, we African leaders need to commit our governments to address critical bottlenecks across the energy value chain as outlined in the Compact's action plans. As we welcome the commitments by the African Development Bank and the World Bank and other financial institutions to scale up financing and technical assistance for active participation of the private sector. We African leaders commit to create favorable investment environment through policy reforms, transparent procurement, and innovative financing mechanisms. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, our gathering here in Dar es Salaam, with Mission 300 as our agenda, sets us on right track to realize the goal of universal access to energy for all. Together, we can light up Africa, transform Africa's energy landscape, and empower generations. Thank you all for your kind attention, and I wish you all fruitful deliberation. Asanteni sana.
Ladies and gentlemen, another big round of applause to our host, Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania. Kindly be seated. Before I extend the request to Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan back to the stage to present the award, Your Excellency, allow me first and foremost to recognize the ministers that are present here who have represented their heads of state. To begin with South Africa, let's give them a round of applause. Tunisia, Rwanda, Morocco, Zimbabwe, but we also have Norway, UAE, Senegal, Cameroon, Azerbaijan, Zimbabwe, infrastructure, G. Women, and category number 3 will be the general category. I now have the honor and take singular honor to request Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan back onto the stage, as well as Dr. Doto Mashaka Biteko to present the awards to the winners. As they come, can we give them a big round of applause? May I request the winners to kindly move forward. Under the youth category, the first winner is Neema Walter, and she will be presented by a dummy check of Tanzanian shillings, 50 million shillings, for coming up with Nishati Mix Technologies. Neema Walter, So what is this Nishati Mixed Technologies? Nishati Mixed Technologies aims to provide a sustainable solution to expand clean cooking access in Tanzania by manufacturing efficient gas burners and recycling waste plastics into clean cooking gas. The system offers both environmental and economic benefits by converting plastic waste into fuel, supporting undeserved communities. Your Excellency, I would like to request you to present the second award to Joshua Joasi of Adami check of 40 million Tanzanian shillings for coming up with an innovation called Click Gas System. Let's give him a round of applause. The Click Gas System is a planted LPG delivery solution designed to improve the clean cooking supply chain in Tanzania. Your Excellency, can I please request you to present a third award to Samson Mwakapoma of 30 million shillings, coming up with an innovation of clean and effective biogas production with fuel gas filtering. This combines biogas generation with unique method of using flue gases. A round of applause. On to the women category. Your Excellency, may I request you to present an award to Ms. Agnes Mashoko, Smart Picker Limited. As she comes, let's give her a round of applause. This innovation addresses the affordability gap by introducing the world's first pay-as-you-go model. Your Excellency, we have two winners under women category. The first of the second winner is Mercy Chilumba, coming with Ben Paul, the artist in East Africa. Together they have sung a cooking song and a TV awareness program. Let's give them a big round of applause. The second winner, Your Excellency, is none other but Ms. Sabra Muhammad of the Mwanamke Initiative, coming all the way from Zanzibar. A round of applause. Thank you very much. Your Excellency, allow me now to bring to the stage Doris Male, who came with an innovation, iLink Limited, TA Mamma Mia Soko. This platform is designed to increase the purchasing power of its members by offering them a commission-based income for referring others to join the platform. Asante sana. Your Excellency, the final category is none other but the general category, and I would like to request you to present the first award to Mr. Bernard Makachia, who came up with Chabri Energy Company innovation, that is clean and effective biogas production with flue gas filtering. A round of applause to him. Your Excellency, may I request you to present the second award to Mr. Andron Mendes, who came up with an innovation called M-Picker. This is proprietary refillable 400 gas canisters with LPG. Finally, Your Excellency, may I request you to present the final award to none other but Atukuzwe Nkia for his innovation on institutional induction stove. I would like to thank you very much, Your Excellency. Kindly take back your seat. As they go to take their seats, let's give them a big round of applause. Naomba tuwapigie makofi pamoja na washindi wetu. Your Excellency, we are now going on to the plenary session, and I would like you to request me to bring to the podium none other but Ms. Nozifo Shabalala, the CEO, the conversation strategist, to take us up onto the next program. As she is already here, ladies and gentlemen, kindly extend a warm welcome to her. Karibu.
Asante sana kaka. Ladies and gentlemen, what an absolute privilege it is to be back on stage with you again. At this moment, we're going to be proceeding with the official MOU signing ceremony. And now, to oversee the signing ceremony, it gives me great pleasure to welcome Professor Vincent Miele, the Secretary General of the African Development Group, who will facilitate the special moment of an MOU signing between the African Development Bank Group and the World Bank Group. Can we give our professor a big round of applause as he comes up? Thank you so very much.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the World Bank Group and the African Development Bank Group wish to enter into a new memorandum of understanding to deepen their partnership and provide the basis on which they may explore opportunities for cooperation and collaboration on matters of common interest, and to render the respective activities more effective and beneficial. These include promoting programs and activities that foster closer cooperation between the two institutions, with a sectoral focus on A, energy, including energy efficiency, energy security, clean cooking, energy transition, and B, agriculture and food security. As a result, may I use this opportunity to invite Mr. Ajay Banga, President of the World Bank, and Dr. Akiumi A. Adeshina, President and the Chairperson of the Board of Directors of the African Development Bank Group, to the podium for the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding. Sign the MOU. Mr. President, could you please stand and exchange the MOU? Thank you very much, Mr. President. This ends the signing ceremony of the MOU. Over to you, MC.
Ladies and gentlemen, a warm round of applause for a very efficient signing ceremony. Thank you very much. Let's give our Secretary General of the African Development Bank Group a good round of applause, please. Ladies and gentlemen, at this moment, it's my pleasure to introduce to the podium a conversation on the role of a private investment in Africa's energy sector. It's my pleasure to welcome my sister Linda Mabena Ologanju, the CEO and founder of DLO, who is going to moderate this conversation. And joining Linda on stage is Patrick Puyane, the CEO of Total, Hussein Alunowe, the chairman of Amir Power, Aminu Umar Sadiq, the Managing Director and CEO of the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority, Mr. Makta Diop, the Managing Director of the IFC, and ladies and gentlemen, as they come to the podium, can we welcome them? Can we give them a warm African round of applause just to give them some energy? Thank you very much. I'm seeing some steps onto the stage. Madam Mabena, if I can invite you to take this seat, please. Fantastic. If I can invite everyone to have a look at their name tags so that we are correctly identified for the session. And now, ladies and gentlemen, before I hand over to our moderator, we do have a special guest who's going to extend some opening remarks for the session. Please help me welcome to the podium Her Excellency Dr. Leila Benali, the Minister of the Energy Transition and Sustainable Development from the Kingdom of Morocco. Might I please ask you to give her a warm round of applause.
Your Excellency, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania, and may I say, our gracious host, and also a model for many, many, many female politicians in the world. Thank you very much. Your Royal Highnesses, Your Excellencies, esteemed Presidents, Honorable Prime Ministers and Ministers, Mr. President of the African Development Bank, Mr. President of the World Bank Group, and Mr. the President of the Rockefeller Foundation, partners from the private sector and from philanthropies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We are gathered here not only because we want to electrify Africa, not only because we believe in the future Africa, not only because we believe that is the last reservoir of productive capacity for the world, but also because we believe that we are reaching a milestone in our journey. And this milestone is very much related to capacity building. We want to engage relevant stakeholders and get the backing of financial partners. And for that, we need to get beyond the traditional way of financing projects. We need to get actionable projects and finance them in 2030 and 2035. And for that, we need to pitch them. We need to finance them in 2025. There's no secret. For all these projects, power plants, grids, green shipping fuels, pipelines, connectivity to materialize, we should be drafting offtake agreements and financing them today. Adapting and scaling all these business models are key to successful and fast-track energy access and electrification programs with a focus on local and distributed generation and technology flexibility. In Morocco, as you know, we have reached 99.8% of rural electrification. And I would call on the quote of the chairman of the African Union and Mr. President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania when he quoted the difficulty of the last mile and the difficulty to finance and access the last mile. And in parallel, of course, we need to put together a supportive regulatory environment with a focus on facilitating multiple small-scale projects and setting clear pricing expectations. Because investors need visibility, and our role as governments is to provide them that transparency and that visibility to provide long-term financing for projects. And we also need to push for a new vision of multilateralism and reform of multilateral financial institutions. And again, I'll be quoting here His Majesty King Mohammed VI at the annual World Bank IMF meetings in Marrakesh, when he said that these meetings of the IMF and the World Bank annual gathering concluded that there was a pressing need to reform multilateralism and development financing. Two levers humanity came up with to meet the challenges of the 20th century. Two levers in which we believe today. So multilateral banks, international financial organizations serve as catalysts, but they need to do more, and we're happy to see the signing of the MOU by providing guarantees and risk-sharing mechanisms to reduce the perceived risks. These are perceived risks most of the time associated with investments in utilities and energy, particularly in Africa. As you know, in Morocco, we have also had that experience, 30 years of experience of attracting financial private capital in the energy systems. Because we've been an infrastructure space as well. We had our first independent power producer back in 1992. So we've had that long experience of attracting and putting together and structuring bankable projects, so we can capitalize on those experiences and we can capitalize on those lessons. And today we need win-win partnerships and an adequate risk allocation for our projects. In renewables, we've launched massive investments, again, with a focus on multiplying investments in our grids by 5 annually, multiplying investments in power generation, including renewable, by 3 annually. And of course, a minimum local industrial content of 30% in all renewable projects. And I would like to say a few words, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on the political vision that we have for the energy sector in Morocco and in Africa. It's connectivity. We've invested heavily and massively in our grid and our connectivity with our neighbors. And I'm pleased to say that we signed last week in Rabat an MOU, an agreement with our friends and our brothers in the Republic of Mauritania to develop an electricity interconnection. But that's not the first step, because we know we cannot succeed alone, and we need to work together, and we need to ensure that our markets are connected, not from an energy perspective, not from an economic perspective, but from a social and stability and peace perspective. If our markets are not connected, we will never be able to counter terrorism in our region. We will never be able to get politics to transcend our economic transformation, and we will never be able to put our countries on the path of sustainable development. So in Morocco, our geostrategic vision that we call the Atlantic Corridor aims to unlock Africa's growth potential, aims to ensure that countries of the Sahel have access to the Atlantic Ocean, aims to ensure that more than 400 million people in Africa have access to modern forms of energy, including, of course, gas connectivity. Morocco is one of the 5 global connectors of the global value chains. It's also a land of reconciliation. We are facilitating cooperation between major geopolitical blocs in areas like knowledge, intelligence, research and development, and we need that for the development of batteries, of storage, of grid management. So we really want to be a facilitator and a driver of this economic and social transition unfolding before us. We are continuing our active role in accelerating the integration of energy markets, connecting of course, the two shores of the Mediterranean Sea with our partners in Europe and Africa, and the Atlantic Basin. And our ambition, excellencies and ladies and gentlemen, is what we call an OTC corridor. OTC does not mean over the counter here. It means originate, transit, and certify. And it means that every molecule, every product, every electron originating, transiting, and being certified in Morocco is being certified as not only green, but in the wider environmental, social, and government sense, because we believe in peace, prosperity, and sustainable development. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll get straight into our panel discussion. I think we've had a lot of delays today. As mentioned, my name is Linda Mabena-Olagunju, and I am the founder and CEO of DLO, which I'm proud to say is a 100% black female-owned independent power producer operating in South Africa, and we own one of the largest wind farms in that country. Starting with you, Makta, I want to get a sense from you. I mean, we've seen a number of renewable energy programs being rolled out on the African continent, but even at that, we haven't seen the uptake that we would like to see. Even in my home country, renewables currently account for less than 10% of the supply on our national grid. How do you see the private sector playing a more active role in terms of investment, and what do you see as some of the challenges that have prevented a bigger uptake in renewable energy investments on the continent?
No, thank you very much, and I would like to thank all the head of states and for their presence and leadership on this issue. If you allow me, I will step out of renewable energy and talk about electricity in general, because renewable energy is part of the story, but part of the story is not linked to renewable energy. I think that we are currently working towards accelerating. I think that we are in a historical moment, and I think that this meeting will be certainly having a declaration will be as important as the Yamoussoukro declarations that you have in air transport, or the Bamako declaration that was held by the head of state on the health sector. We are looking at the three components of electricity production in Africa. We have generation, you have transmission, and you have distribution. And I think that if we want to reach our targets, we need to work on these three segments. On generation, I think that we have turned the corner, and I think that countries like Nigeria and other countries have shown that generation is now mainly done by the private sector. So if we are old enough to remember that there were a time where people were saying generation should be done only by the public sector, is a strategic sector. We have turned the corner, and today a big chunk of the production of electricity is done by the private sector. Now the private sector is producing, but the main constraint from what I hear from them is the transport and distribution of such electricity. So transport lines are insufficient in Africa. We know that. It's a country which has the lowest kilometer of transmission, but the private sector is not yet involved as it should be and it could be in financing this very expensive asset, which is transmission. So I think the number one question for me, and the number one challenge that we need to address if we want to reach this target, is to bring the private sector in financing transmission. It means that in a lot of countries, we need to unbundle the system so that we can bring the local savings, the pension funds, the private investors locally and internationally to finance this important, critical, essential asset, which is transmission. The second one is distribution. A lot of the distribution companies are undercapitalized, are not in a good financial situation, and are therefore not able to invest in operation and maintenance, which is so important. That's why actually a lot of the power outage you have in Africa are not linked often to production. They often linked to distribution. The network is not robust enough to be able to distribute it. So what can we do to improve the quality of the distribution companies? I would like to say that we have a time where we can change the paradigm. We need to have more investment equity. I will suggest that we open the capital of the distribution companies and we make it public. In effect, we need to think about a way to take the distribution company and take them to stock exchange. For me, that would be having many effects. First, it would allow the domestic saving not to fly out of the country, but to be invested in productive assets. Secondly, it will allow the pension fund and institutional investors to invest in it. And the government can decide, depending on the decision of the head of state and the country, to give the majority or not to give the majority. But what is important is that we need to inject more capital in the distribution companies so that they can do what is needed. So these are the three elements, and I think that we are seeing some movement in South Africa. They're currently discussing now the regulatory framework on how to bring transport, private sector investment in transport. Nigeria has been working also on this question, but a lot of other African countries. So I think that if we can take some of the discussion and try to see practically what we can do to be able to bring more private capital in transmission and more private capital in distribution, I think that we will be able to build on what has been done on generation and accelerating. On generation, you have two components. The second component is to continue helping the country to clean their matrix. For that, for the most polluting part of the matrix, they can use transition resources like gas to power to substitute for coal, to substitute for heavy fuel, and all these very polluting sources of electricity, while accelerating the production of renewable. And I think that we have a very good example, and I'm leaving to some of our colleagues and clients we are working with here, who have been investing heavily in renewable, are showing opportunities which are before us, and we are ready. Lastly, I would like to say an announcement, Zafiri, which is a new fund that we put in place to finance the decentralized renewable energy. And I would like to thank Raj Shah and President Adesina, because we are working together, and it's a very new approach. All these companies that we met need equity. They don't have enough equity to invest in that sector. So we are putting together a fund of $1 billion to be able to finance this equity, where we will be taking a big part of the risk on the balance sheet of DFIs by taking the junior tranche, and we are receiving grant money from the foundation like Rockefeller or the foundation, the money from IDA and AFDB, and that we allow to get capital from those who are. And I would like to say, and President Tinubu, I would like to announce that yesterday you signed the first project in using this facility for Nigeria, where yesterday we signed for 70 million of mandate to support this decentralized renewable energy. So this is the journey for us, which goes beyond renewable, but includes largely renewable. And I will let some of my colleagues here to talk about it, because they are the ones who have been making this huge investment in this sector. Thank you.
No, thank you for that. And that dovetails, that's an excellent announcement, because one of the big things we struggle with as entrepreneurs in the space, whether you're dealing with transmission, distribution, or generation, is the issue of equity. And if we look at what was said by the World Bank earlier on, we're going to have to create jobs in the African economy. And in order to do that, you are going to have to create local developers and local players. And the missing piece is usually the equity check, especially for early stage development, for developers that are African, that retain the capital on this continent and that employ the Africans on this continent. But dovetailing to what you've already done as the IFC, I'd like to come to you, Aminu. I mean, if you could tell us a bit about the 500 million investment and partnership with the IFC on the distribution side. Could you tell us a bit more about that transaction and what it means?
Thank you very much. I'll just take a step back to perhaps offer a perspective, and then I can deep dive into that. I think following on from President Tinubu's energy transition agenda, at the start of 2024, the NSIA and our coordinating Minister of the Economy actually conceptualized, developed, and operationalized a renewable energy platform called Ripple. And what that platform does is essentially address the value dislocations in the energy access sector. And it does so by essentially being a developer, an investor, and an operator of a plethora of different kinds of projects, particularly around PV manufacturing, around franchising, which is essentially being a disco within a disco, and of course diesel displacements. In the last 12 months, we have actually closed on 2 transactions, the first being a co-located solar PV farm alongside one of our hydro plants, as well as a PV manufacturing outfit in Lagos. As Mr. Diop mentioned, I think equity is the key in this regard, and I think this is what we offer through Ripple. But I think importantly, it's also important to put the focus on local currency capital mobilization. And the NSIA has done that through a facility called InfraCredit. And essentially what this facility does is to mobilize local currency capital to domestic infrastructure with a particular focus on distributed renewable energy. I'm proud to say that working with the World Bank and our coordinating Minister of the Economy, we're also essentially establishing a financial guarantor not only for DRE projects, but for large-scale infrastructure projects, particularly on-grid projects, transmission projects, and so on and so forth. And I think finally, alongside Africa 50, as well as SE for All, around a DRE-specific platform. And the organizing principles around this platform are the following. The first is that it's important to have a local manager tied in with a continental manager, NSI being the local manager and Africa 50 being the continental manager, to ensure that whatever key learnings are undertaken, whatever key learnings that we essentially undertake in the course of implementing this DRE platform in Nigeria, we're able to have the benefits of that as we proliferate across the continent. I think the second is around the capitalization structure. Equity is key, and I think that's where NSIA and Africa 50 are going to come in on the hard currency equity side. But also it's important to attract equity on the local currency side, particularly for pension funds. And we've been having discussions with the IFC around how to provide the requisite guarantees to actually mobilize local currency on the equity side for that platform. And then of course, at the project level, you would have local currency debt. So I think that capitalization structure is also extremely key. And then the third and final component of that platform is to make sure we take a whole of ecosystem approach. This platform in and of itself, investing directly, will not move the needle. But if we collaborate with financial sponsors like Chapel Hill Denham, like InfraCredit, who have a first loss capital in place, who have a deep pipeline of DRE projects in place, who are able to mobilize pension funds, but they lack the equity, this platform is able to finance that equity. Similarly, for financial partners, for operating partners who have bankable projects, who are able to access the debt but lack the equity, this platform would also execute upon that. So I think a combination of these 3 organizing principles makes ourselves, Africa 50 and SE for All, with support from the IFC, excited that we can make a difference to this space. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to dig deeper, though. Let's unpack that a bit. At what stage is your equity coming in? Is it coming in when the projects are at 80% of development? Is it coming in at an early stage development? Because once you reach 80%, you've already de-risked your project, and you can easily raise a check. And what Africa is lacking right now is people who are ready to come in before we've actually achieved the early stage permitting. If you're going to unlock the potential of the projects that exist on this continent, we almost need an answer to the risk capital question mark at that early stage.
Very good question. And I think, of course, there is a place for project preparatory facilities, and I think it is those facilities that actually address that. But equity fundamentally is in place to take exactly that risk. And so I think the focus of our platform would be not only brownfield, cash-producing propositions, but also the very, very early stage, at-risk development propositions. I think it's only if we engage within that portion of the value chain that we will begin to make a difference.
Agreed. Patrick, you have had great success on the continent as Total Energies in terms of the renewable energy projects as well as other types of technologies, gas to power, etc. In South Africa, I think you've got a pipeline of 700 megawatts. So someone like you who has led this organization that has perceived success, what are some of the challenges you have faced developing projects on this continent?
Thank you. First, it's an honor to be invited today. I'm happy to be with all of you at the Head of State Summit for Energy for Africa. For us, obviously, for Total, which became Total Energies, it's, I would say, our homeland, Africa. You know, for oil and gas, we should not forget that oil and gas is today bread and butter for many of these countries, but also for renewables. We embark in a strategy where we want to do both, and the renewable projects in Africa, I will be honest with you, yes, we have today 1.4 gigawatt either already operated or being built, but it's not an easy journey. And I think there are two, I would say, main challenges. Already said that. The first one was mentioned by my friend of IFC, it's the transmission system. You know, when you want to build a renewable farm, you need to connect it to the grid. And it's a challenge in many countries, but especially in Africa. And then you need to transport this electricity. It's obvious that today, when you have a distribution company which is managing both transmission and distribution, it's difficult in terms of huge capital to attract. I was discussing the issue yesterday with one president of Mozambique, where we have a large hydro project. And I told him we cannot start a hydro because we don't see the transmission line behind it. And frankly, we can attract, you can attract international investors, private investors on production like us on hydro, but you could also attract international and private investors on infrastructure. A transmission line is an infrastructure, but it has to be managed, as you said, by attracting more capital. Otherwise, I'm afraid this bottleneck will remain. The second one, which is, I would tell you, even more important, is to be able to have a bankable PPA. What does that mean? But even my friend of IFC, you know, they like to make profits like us. If you want to establish, when you are a renewable developer, you want to go to financing, to banks, commercial banks, which all have a lot of commitments to develop renewables, green energy, plenty of hundreds of millions of dollars. What they want to be sure is that you need to secure the revenues of the project. It seems obvious, but you know, we know that in this continent, they might have some difficulties of payments, you know, local payments. So we are asking for some form of guarantees. Guarantees, in fact, when you look to the project, there are not a lot of defaults. It's just that the financial institution, they want some guarantees. Of course, we turn to the states, but the states, quite often, the IMF tells them, don't give guarantees, you know. The IMF is a brother of some cousin from IFC. And I think so if it's not the state which can give this guarantee, we need to have, and I think the World Bank CEO was there, but his representative IFC is there, we absolutely need to have in place an instrument of guarantee for being able to develop all this PPA. And the international financial institutions are discussing it for years. Each time I'm participating to a conference, it's now time to action. And I hope that this M300 that you launched today will be the opportunity to really have instruments. The World Bank, the MEGA, etc., but we need to have it. Because otherwise, honestly, I'm afraid we cannot put it at scale, and the potential in the continent, not only on solar, but also on hydro, is huge. So this question of guarantee, and financial institution, or whoever it is, we should not be afraid. We don't face many defaults. It's just a question of comfort. On Total Energies, we have done, in some countries, in Iraq, but also in Libya, in Angola, try to make some links between I would say, oil business and this renewable business by using, I would say, the proceeds which got from oil as guarantee to renewable. So it's a solution which can work for us because we produce oil and gas, but it's not only, it could not work for everybody. So they could have some initiatives, and this is really a major point if we want to accelerate. I would say as well that, of course, and I would jack in Africa is very important, and in 2024 we took 2 initiatives. The first one is about clean cooking, and I praise President Samia of Tanzania. I think it's very important. But you know, when you speak about clean cooking, fundamentally the easiest way to deploy clean cooking is LPGs. And it's back to gas. I know that there are some new methodology of cooking, of cook stove, but LPG is available in Africa. We committed the company to invest $400 million to reach 85 million Africans with LPGs. If you combine these LPGs which are available, for example, in our projects in Uganda, we'll have a huge source of LPG, and we can use the LPG to deploy bottles, LPG bottles, into Uganda, into all the neighboring Tanzania and other countries. This is a very pragmatic way to bring this reliable energy and clean energy, because it's much better than charcoal or wood. For women in Africa, it's a huge progress. We are combining it, by the way, because one of the main topics is to make it affordable with some pay-as-you-use tools, with digital tools, in order for a customer not to be obliged to pay upfront the full bottle of LPG, but to pay when he's using the LPG bottle, which is one of the challenge as well. So this is the first initiative we took, $400 million, to deploy this LPG's clean cooking, invest into standard storages and distribution of LPGs in the continent. The second initiative we took is that we observe with other large corporations like mine, my European colleagues of BP, Equinor and Shell, that we speak about a lot in Africa about microgrids, of solar, you know. It's quite difficult. There is plenty of SMEs we try to deploy, and we honestly feel that we are not really progressing well. So we decided to put all our efforts together in a new fund, which will be dotted by $500 million, which will be managed by a private equity fund, in order to invest here and to really have a sort of capacity to really bring more to these developments of home solar system, microgrids, etc. It's not easy, but we think that all what we can do to develop access to energy to African population is important. Last part, again, is gas. I know you've asked me a question about renewable, but if you want and you need in Africa electricity, but you want a 24/7 reliable electricity, when you have intermittent sources like solar and wind, of course you have some hydro. You need to combine it with gas-fired power plant. And so I know there is a debate, but I'm fully supportive of all of you here. And you need to speak up in all the international arena, including with my European friends, that yes, it's true that climate change is fundamental. But gas will allow you to make some progress. It will allow you to develop Africa. It will allow you, in fact, to give economic development, social development. It's the best way. So gas to power has to be developed in the country. Again, I was in Mozambique. We have a huge LNG project to develop in Mozambique, but somewhere, of course, very legitimately, the authorities of Mozambique are asking us, what can you do for domestic gas? Domestic gas means, in fact, power. And so gas to power, and I think it's a good argument. I think with the other countries, in European countries, tell them, look, you want us to export our LNG to Europe because you don't have Russian gas anymore. We should be allowed to develop our gas also for our own economy. So I'm a big advocate, and I think we are aligned with IFC, gas to power, transmission, and again, finding a way to guarantee renewable PPAs are the three, I would say, topics on which I think if we want to make this Mission 300 really a reality, we need to work together.
No, thank you, Patrick. I think you really touched on key issues, especially around the turnaround time for whenever there's a lack of a government-backed program, so for example, where there isn't a government-backed or government-guaranteed program like we had in South Africa, when you are pursuing PPAs, it is a very long and arduous road, and that doesn't build a market. I remember when Hussein, your company, started its track in South Africa, your business development lady, Babo, used to come and knock on doors and say, I'm from this company, Amir Power, and I was really happy to see finally you guys won a project. And no one talks about how long it takes to actually get to the point of being a successful bidder in these programs, but also the fact that we need to de-risk these projects significantly, whether you're doing power, whether you're looking at the, the infrastructure side, which is your transmission. Could you tell me a bit about your journey as well in terms of what you see as a challenge as an investor in Africa in the power sector, and in particular the role you feel guarantees play in de-risking these projects for you as an investor?
Thanks, Linda. I think my three friends on this panel have covered a lot of the points related to this, but let me share my personal experience. My company, Emia Power, has been around for 8 years. We are today present in 20 different countries in Africa. We believe in Africa. We were an early believer in Africa. We believe in this great continent. We believe in the people of Africa. And therefore, we have committed fully to this continent. We are in about 6,000 megawatt today in these 20 countries. The challenges we saw are the same challenges raised. The first big challenge is the grid. My brother Mukhtar highlighted that. I think it's about time for the IPP developer to start investing in the grid. My company, Emia Power, have decided to pursue this route. And we want to discuss it with potential clients in Africa because they are unable to do the grid. We see generation is easy, but you need to evacuate that generation. How can you evacuate it if there is no grid or there is poor grid? Some countries like Morocco have done a great job by investing in the grid. Egypt have done a great job in investing in the grid. And that have eased the job for developer to start building generation. I think some of my other friends in different countries, I see many great presidents of Africa here, one need to start opening that grid for the private sector. It will help them. It will create another avenue for generation. The second challenge we see in some countries is the convertibility of the currency. In our principle, we always need to be paid in a currency of convertibility, dollar or euro. Some countries, like South Africa, because you're able to borrow in rand, you hedge your risk on the currency. Morocco, you borrow in dirham because you hedge yourself in currency. Other countries, we cannot accept it. It has to be convertible currency. And it has to come with a bankable documentation for the project, like was raised by our friend. The bankability of these documents are important because we all go to the lenders, and the lenders want to take minimum risk and pass the risk on you as a developer. From our experience, we believe the challenge as well is the permitting and dealing with the different local organizations. Therefore, one of the suggestions I've made to some of the friends in the government in African countries is to have a one-stop shop where we as a developer deal with all the required permits, be it land, be it taxes, be it whatever permits or dealing you need to have with a government agencies, a one-stop shop. So the investor doesn't waste time running around. It's there. You go and deal with all these issues. We've seen this, for example, in Togo, a small country where they have done it remarkably very well. You go to one-stop shop, all the issues are solved, and you move on. And we delivered in Togo, for example, in 14 months from A to Z. In a challenging time. Why? Because we committed, and B, because the system allowed us to do so. We also believe, which makes life easy for us in the community we work on. We work on communities which are normally remote, is to partner with that community. By that I mean we invest in their needs. We build clinics, we build school, we hire their young men and women, we train them, we develop to become part of the team who operate this plant. And that community partnership have eased life for us. Some of these countries, the rural area, have challenge of security, have challenge of all kinds of challenges. And what we did in a particular country, I don't need to mention, we had challenges there. So what we did, we went to the community and offered them all the services they need to make their life better in their community. It's part of the cost we took on our shoulder, but it made life so easy and so successful, we were able to finish on time, in some cases ahead of schedule. So these are lessons we learned in this journey of developing power in Africa. Obviously, some countries more advanced than others. Some countries have more capacity than others. And by the way, speaking of capacity, that's another important thing. Sometimes you sit across the table from a client. That client is not familiar with the rules and regulation which are needed for investments. We as an investor, we need to have bankable documents, we need to have currency protection, we need to have sovereign guarantee, because I need to go to my friend in IFC and say, can you lend me money, or my friend in AFDB, can you lend money on this project? They will say, okay, what are the guarantees you have? These are very, very important. Otherwise, you don't have a bankable project. Otherwise, there is no project. Now, my friend in Total is lucky if there is oil, he have the security of that oil and can do it. But others, we don't have that privilege. So I'm a strong believer in the potential of this continent. I'm a great believer in the people of this continent. But we all need to work to provide coaching, for capacity building, for the resources on the other side of the table.
No, thank you. That's very, very well said. I think just to wrap up from the deliberations from this past 2 days, as the private sector, we're being called upon to invest. And I think it's also very important because this is one of the first conferences I've attended where you actually have the presidents and the decision makers sitting and listening to private sector. And I think this provides a unique opportunity for us as private sector to say what needs to be done, which you've touched on about accelerating the rate at which permits are being given out in order for us to be able to develop these projects faster. Patrick, you've also touched on issues around financial guarantees that need to be in place in order for us to be able to lend the money in order to get these projects off the ground. The one thing I think that was not really touched on throughout the 2 days of the summit is there was a lot of mention on jobs and that we're going to create these jobs. To create jobs, you need to have scale. To create scale, you need to have volumes of orders, as we know. Like, if we're only rolling out a megawatt here, that's not enough to sustain manufacturing on a sustainable level. So if we are really going to be serious about this target of 300 million in the next 5 years, what are we thinking around building the local manufacturing or assembly capacity on this continent to create those jobs? Because those jobs don't come from generation alone. I remember Total had an assembly plant in South Africa, which unfortunately didn't have enough volumes due to our stop and start approach at the time. So I think it's important to be clear to the leaders in this room today that the jobs will not come from generation alone, and we need volumes in order for us to be able to produce the scale that can sustain a manufacturing base. I don't know if you have any other comments around that as we wrap up on your observations over the last 2 days.
I mean, if I can just say one thing on the scale. I totally agree with you, by the way, on the scale. I was having a discussion with one of our friends today from the government of in North Africa on the tariff. Now, I cannot provide a low tariff on a 30 megawatt project. You cannot compare a tariff I made for a project of 1,000 megawatt with that of 30 megawatt. Economy of scale and procurement and construction makes all the difference. Now, the challenge some countries have on allowing an investor like us to build. We'd like to build big projects. I built today in Egypt, I'm building the largest single power project in African continents, 1,000 megawatt in one site. In one site. So the challenge is that the grid, because these are remote areas, they need to build in that village and this village and that area, near this mine, near that industrial zone, but there is no grid, and therefore you only have 30 or 40 or 50 megawatt, and you connect accordingly.
You know, at the end, we face a situation, it's an industry which is dominated largely by one or two countries, you know. And all of you, at the end, the objective for head of states, Europe, Africa, is the cost of electricity for the customer. And so you have to be efficient. So I think in the solar industry today, almost 90% is produced in China. The question we have is, can we convince the Chinese company to come and to manufacture? For that, we need to have enough. The size is fundamental, you know. We are managing today to develop an alternative to China in India, but we have engaged there, Total Energies, in a 30 gigawatt project, so solar and wind, 500 square kilometers. It's huge, but it gives, of course, this manufacturing industry a way to take off. So the question, as you said, is, do we have enough scale? And honestly, I perfectly understand the very legitimate request, but then at the end it's the arbitration between a local manufacturing, which might be more expensive, and the cost of electricity for customers. And we are not yet there, I think. There is one country where we think we could have a scale. It's your country, South Africa. The other one is Egypt, because these are the two countries, and Morocco, the three countries, I would say, where we've seen, and you know, recently we signed a MOU to develop a very large farm in Morocco to produce hydrogen or electricity. We'll see what it is. But it is, the scale is fundamental if we want to reach your objective. And that's, to be honest, even Europeans do not manage to make manufacturing. I don't encourage you to make tariff to get local jobs, you know. Be careful. It's not a solution to the planet and to develop more electricity, in particular in this continent. By the way, I just touched upon one point. I think there is a way for all the countries in North Africa, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, and Egypt, to look to Europe, which has a Green Deal, has a huge market for electricity. We will never manage, I can tell you, because of lack of space in Europe. We have a problem of access to land. We will never manage because, and the weather, by the way, it's more sun in Africa than there. We will never manage to reach the objectives of the Green Deal without finding a way to develop large and efficient renewable farms in these countries and to link them by subsea cables to Italy, to Spain, to France. And it could be a source of revenues for Africa. So if really we are serious there, this is something on which we are working today with different countries. We have engaged a company in something which is a little landing on the moon project, which is called X-Links, but this is the idea. We need to develop that, and this could be a resource. The other comment I would say, don't forget hydro in Africa. Hydro is not intermittent. You have still a potential. We acquired this last year in 24. We are just closing it. All the developers of hydro projects of Scatec, a Norwegian company, in Uganda, Rwanda, Malawi. There is Gabon, I could say, there is a good potential, which is maybe easier to access because less intermittent, so giving you more pragmatic solution, but you have a big potential in hydro in the continent.
Well, thank you very much. I've been told and threatened that our time is up, so go ahead.
Just I want to come back to what we started with, because I think we have the head of states who are here and who are expecting us to give us some ideas of what they can work on and bring their government to work around. I think that things are happening. For instance, in Mauritania, on the mining side, there are huge investment needed in electricity. We are working with the Mauritanian authorities. I want to come back to say that for me, the main bottleneck right now would be transmission and distribution. What Patrick just have said about connecting submarine cable to Europe is transport and transmission. But you can go further, because Morocco and North Africa will be connected to Mauritania will be connected to the Sahel, and also can export the huge capacity of production that existed in renewable. So if we don't address this bottleneck of transport, I think we are missing a big opportunity of growth, a big opportunity to increase access. So I think that one of the takeaways here will be, can we have an agreement, a commitment that we will be unbundling transmission and accept to have investment from the private sector on transmission. This is a political decision that needs to be. Secondly, we cannot do M300 if the utilities are in the current financial situation that we have in a lot of African countries. I spent personally a lot of time in my career working on this. And I think that if we don't address the financial sustainability of distribution companies, will be and their governance. The financial situation is often linked to the governance. So to address issue of governance, we need to make the capital open to the public. We are talking about capital flight in Africa. I don't believe that African people want to put their money abroad for the sake of doing it. If they had opportunity to invest in assets which are tangible, interesting assets where they can make money, the middle class in Africa will invest in shares in the utility, if the utility functions well. And there we'll be able to take the saving of African people and transfer it in productive sectors. So I think there is an agenda, short term, that we can work on, address, to be able to accelerate what we are doing right now, and on the DRE to be able, on renewable, to do. Lastly, guarantee is well heard. We are tripling, quadrupling the guarantee of the World Bank Group. That's part of the big reform of the World Bank Group. And we are doing 30% of our lending in local currency right now at IFC, and we are aiming at doing much more in the future. I know that the time of the head of state is very precious, and I will stop here. But thank you very much for giving this opportunity.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much to the panel and the moderators. If I may invite you for a photo opportunity in the middle of the stage. Please, ladies and gentlemen, a warm round of applause for an important conversation as they take their photo opportunity. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, while that photo opportunity is taking place, we have arrived at an important point in our program. This moment, ladies and gentlemen, signals the presidential endorsement of the Dar es Salaam Energy Declaration. And so, ladies and gentlemen, once again, it's my pleasure to welcome the Secretary General of the African Development Bank Group to kindly please come and facilitate the presidential endorsement of the Dar es Salaam Energy Declaration. Let's put our hands together for Professor Vincent Mihele once again. Thank you very much to the professor. Let's give him a round of applause.
Your Excellency, President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Your Majesty, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government present and represented, on behalf of the co-organizers and partners, it is my privilege to present to you the Dar es Salaam Declaration by the Africa Heads of State Energy Summit on providing access to electricity for 30 million people in Africa by 2030. Upon the reading of the declaration, the Excellencies will be invited to sign the declaration that you would have adopted. And of course, following the signature, the other components of the commitment will happen. So I read, we, the heads of state and government of the underlisted African countries, meeting in Dar es Salaam for the Africa Heads of State Energy Summit under the theme, Powering Africa for Reliable, Affordable, Inclusive, Sustainable, and Clean Energy for All, to discuss and agree on the overall objectives and targets, policy, priorities, challenges, and commitments to invest in our energy sector. And we, 1, commend Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania, for hosting this important summit and for her leadership in championing clean cooking in Africa. 2, recognize the leadership and commitment of President Akinwumi Adesina of the African Development Bank Group and President Ajay Banga of the World Bank Group for their historic and transformative initiative. 3, acknowledge the leadership and support of the chairperson of the African Union, His Excellency President Mohamed Ould Ghazouani of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, as well as the chairperson of the African Union Commission, His Excellency Mr. Musa Faki Mahamat. 4, acknowledge the urgent need to address the stark reality that nearly 600 million Africans lack access to electricity, and almost 1 billion lack access to clean cooking solutions, despite significant progress. 5, recognize that achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 7 for affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all by 2030 requires concerted efforts and unprecedented investment across the energy value chain. Country platforms such as the National Energy Compacts provide the framework for coordinated actions and shall be in place by the end of 2025. 6, appreciate the critical role of partnerships in mobilizing resources for energy access initiatives such as Mission 300, with the World Bank Group and the African Development Bank Group targeting electrification for 250 million and 50 million people, respectively. 7, commend the African Development Bank Group and the World Bank Group for the planned allocation of $48 billion in financing through 2030, and complementing this with increasing private sector financing, as well as technical assistance for advancing energy sector reform and access across Africa. We understand that this allocation will evolve to fit implementation needs. 8, commend the co-financing commitments announced by Agence Française de Développement of $1 billion, the Islamic Development Bank of $2.65 billion, Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank of between $1 billion to $1.5 billion, and the OPEC Fund for International Development, $1 billion in support of energy access activities on the continent. 9, acknowledge the contributions of our partners towards the recent generous replenishment of IDA 21 and call for a similarly generous replenishment of the ADF, Africa Development Fund 17, to increase concessional resources at long-term maturity available for our countries to accelerate access to electricity and clean cooking. 10, acknowledge the efforts of the African Union under the AU Agenda 2063 towards energy access, energy security, and regional integration, and the strategic roles of the AU flagship energy initiatives, including the African Single Electricity Market, the Continental Power System Master Plan, and the Program of Infrastructure Development in Africa toward achieving the goals of Mission 300. 11, recognize that the private sector needs to play a central and determinant role in the entire energy value chain towards meeting the continent's energy access goals, including both on-grid as well as in distributed renewable energy and clean cooking solutions, and therefore creating an enabling environment for private sector investment is critical. 12, agreed to a united vision of delivering energy to Africans, recognizing its transformative role in ending poverty, improving health, and driving industrialization to foster economic development across sectors. 13, and here is the commitment. Hereby resolved to undertake the following. 1, pursue ambitious yet achievable goals for access to electricity and clean cooking solutions, increase the shares of renewable energy in the energy mix, and increase private capital mobilization, and take control and time-bound actions to A, efficiently rehabilitate and expand power generation, transmission and distribution network infrastructure at competitive costs based on least cost power systems planning principles that consider not only natural resources but also tap into cost-effective generation options regionally and through competitive and transparent procurement processes that attract qualified bidders and secure best prices. B, leverage the benefits of increased regional integration by investing in interconnections, harmonizing transmission planning, pricing, standards, and grid codes with the power pools and fostering cooperation among countries to unlock Africa's full energy potential, including gas as well as hydropower, solar, wind, geothermal, and other clean energy sources. C, embrace distributed renewable energy and clean cooking solutions as critical elements of the energy access agenda by adopting the multi-tier framework for energy access definition, least cost electrification strategies and plans with an emphasis on energy efficiency as well as national clean cooking strategies with realistic targets. D, incentivize private sector participation to unlock resources by creating an enabling environment through supportive regulations, effective fiscal policies with appropriate incentives and innovative financing mechanisms grounded in cost-benefit analysis. Further, incentivize African investors and support the development of an African electricity industry. E, ensure financially viable utilities that prioritize energy security and provision of reliable, affordable, and sustainable electricity services through appropriate reforms and actions, including tariff adjustments and efficiency improvement measures to ensure utilities achieve at least 100% operational cost recovery at the earliest possible time and timely publication of audited financial statements. 2, take adequate measures for institutional strengthening and capacity building with an emphasis on timely and successful implementation and greater synergies with existing partnerships. 3, commit to prioritize gender equality by accelerating access to energy for women and implementing actions that catalyze access to opportunities in employment and entrepreneurship in the energy sector. 4, prioritize our national budgetary resources to complement resources from development partners, philanthropies, and the private sector for the implementation of Mission 300 objectives.
Number 14, with the aim of providing access for modern energy for 300 million people in Africa, we commit to bold action and political support by adopting this declaration. And finally, 15, request the African Union Commission to facilitate the submission of this Dar es Salaam Declaration by the Africa Heads of State Energy Summit on providing access to electricity for 300 million Africans to the African Union Assembly for its consideration and adoption. Adopted by the Heads of State and Government at the Africa Heads of State Energy Summit in Dar es Salaam, United Republic of Tanzania, this 28th day of January 2025. May I call on protocol officers to please provide the folders for the heads of state to sign against the names of their countries. Excellencies, haven't signed. May I please invite you? Please make sure that excellencies have their folders. Thank you very much, brass band. Thank you very much. Can someone please provide the folder for South Africa to sign? Please put your hand one more time for the brass band.
Brass band.
Excellencies, haven't signed the declaration.
Baada ya kusaini hizo, nina ombi jingine moja tu. Kama mtaweza tafadhali kuja hapa mbele na kuweza kuyainua matamko yenu kwa ajili ya kuyapiga picha ili tuweze kuweka kama historia leo hapa Salaam.
Excellencies, please come.
Tafadhali waheshimiwa, tunaomba mje hapa mkiyabeba hayo matamko yenu mikononi.
With your declaration to be able to show.
Tunataka hayo matamko yenu yaweze kuonekana, kila mmoja alishike tamko hilo.
Show Africa the commitment and the bold statement that you've made. Can you please clap for the excellencies?
Naomba mwapige waheshimiwa marais.
Thank you. Thank you, excellencies.
Asante.
Thank you for this bold commitment. Thank you for this bold statement
Asante kwa ajili
towards Mission 300.
Tamko hili kuelekea ajenda 300.
M3 300. M300.
M300.
Thank you very much.
Asante sana.
Thank you.
Asante sana.
We'll move to the next session, which will be handled by the Master of Ceremony.
Sehemu inayofuata katika programu.
To all my colleagues from the media and the press, may we please allow our heads of state the opportunity to kindly please take their seats. Thank you very much to my colleagues from the media and the press. May we please give our heads of state an opportunity to kindly please take their seats.
Tunaomba tuwapishe tafadhali.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I also ask all of us to kindly please take our seats? We are transitioning into a very, very important final part of our program. If you are still outstanding, ladies and gentlemen, kindly please take our seats. And to the media, may we please allow our excellencies to kindly please take their seats.
Au mwaruhusu wakuu wa nchi na serikali waweze kupata nafasi ya kurejea kwenye viti vyao. Upande wangu wa kushoto tafadhali, ninaomba wote mrejee kwenye viti vyenu, mketi tafadhali. Naomba tafadhali tuweze kuendelea na ratiba yetu inayofuata.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, might I ask us to allow our excellencies to please take their seats.
Niwaombe waheshimiwa waweze kuketi kwenye viti vyao.
And can I please ask our security colleagues to please assist in getting everyone to kindly please take their seats? All right, fantastic. We are ready to proceed in the next minute or so, as soon as everybody has taken their seats.
Tutaketi ili kila mtu aweze kuwa na utulivu, tuendelee na ratiba yetu.
To my media colleagues in the middle of the room, please, might I ask you to please allow our heads of state to please take their seats and allow us to all get settled again. Thank you.
Asante.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We are moving ahead with our program, and I am going to be handing you over at this moment into the capable hands of my sister Marie-Angèle Touré and Dr. Victor Oladukun, who is a senior advisor to the President for Communications and Stakeholder Engagement at the African Development Bank. Their job this afternoon is to facilitate for us the commitments from our various heads of state. I'd like to give them a floor that is settled and has a respectable tone in the room, and so kindly requesting for all of us to take our seats. Can I ask you to give them a big round of applause as they make their way to the podium? Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, as we get started, might I invite us to please locate our headsets. We are going to be listening in a variety of languages. And so allow me to please remind ourselves that the various channels are as follows. If you'd like to follow in English, it is channel 1. French is channel 2. Arabic is channel 3. Portuguese is channel 4. And Kiswahili is channel 5. Let me repeat that one more time. Channel 1 is English. Channel 2 is French. Channel 3 is Arabic. Channel 4 is Portuguese. And Channel 5 is Kiswahili. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Kiswahili.
les invités, mesdames et messieurs. Mambo ou Jumbo, je ne sais pas pour vous, mais ce sont des mots qui me donnent le sourire. Et il y a de quoi avoir le sourire en cette journée, ici à Dar es Salaam, au vu des engagements forts qui ont été pris,
Neno hili linaitwa jambo, linanifanya nifurahi na linanifanya nifurahie kuona idadi kubwa ya wakuu wa nchi na serikali walioko hapa kushuhudia, ambao wamefika jana na leo.
Souvent, on a tendance à être confronté à des personnes qui nous disent les sommets se suivent, se ressemblent, et il n'y a pas grand-chose qui en ressort. Et je peux vous dire, mesdames et messieurs, que ce n'est pas le cas aujourd'hui. La mission croissante est loin, très très loin d'être une mission impossible, bien au contraire. C'est la mission de tous les possibles. Et c'est ce dont nous allons discuter avec nos intervenants qui vont nous rejoindre sur ce podium, les chefs d'État qui ont fait le déplacement vont pouvoir nous rejoindre dans quelques instants, ainsi que leurs représentants par la suite. Mesdames et messieurs, je vous demande d'accueillir Victor Oladokoun, le co-présentateur de cette cérémonie, qui va vous dire quelques mots également.
Sasa ni mkaribu mwenzangu ambaye atasimamia zoezi hili la ahadi za wakuu wa nchi na serikali.
I assume that all of you understood French.
Sorry, just a little bit of housekeeping here before we begin. We just want to make sure that everybody is seated as we await the arrival of the remaining excellencies in the room. What an astounding 2 days it has been for us here. We are going to continue the program right now in a little bit more detail. Kindly bear with me. We had a few technical hitches in the back, so we will be commencing shortly. Thank you very much. Marangel, over to you. Again, Your Excellencies, kind apologies here. We just had a few technical issues. But Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it really has been an amazing 2 days here at this historic Africa Energy Summit, sub-themed Mission 300, right here in the beautiful city of Dar es Salaam, the House of Peace. We're truly honored to be hosted by our gracious host, President Samia Suluhu Hassan, a truly visionary African leader who in a very short span of time has accelerated economic growth and created a vision for a new and transformed Tanzania. We're also honored greatly by the presence of Your Excellencies here today. Your presence says many things. It speaks to visionary leadership, political commitment, synergistic cooperation, as well as a vision for an alternative future for us in Africa. Yesterday we heard from Ajay Banga as he talked about electricity being a human right and one that confers dignity, and we also heard from Dr. Akinwumi Adesina as he talked about the need for not megawatts of talk, but megawatts of delivered action. We also heard again from Rajiv Shah.
Alisema mkutano huu utafanikiwa kwa sababu kubwa tatu. Moja, kwa sababu unaongozwa na Afrika, sababu ya uwepo wa waheshimiwa wakuu wa nchi na serikali, na tatu, kwa sababu ya njozi na kujitoa kwa nchi wanachama. Kwa hiyo waheshimiwa wakuu wa nchi na serikali, asante kwa kuupa kipaumbele mkutano huu na kuwa nasi katika juma hili. Maria, kwako tafadhali. Asante sana Victor. Sasa tunaenda kumuita mtu ambaye atakuwa akiwaleta katika chumba hiki, na tutakuwa tukiita mkuu mmoja wa nchi badala ya mwingine. Ninataka kwanza kumleta Mheshimiwa Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan kutoka Tanzania. Karibu sana mabibi na mabwana.
va garder notre...
Sasa tutamweka Mheshimiwa Rais Samia mwishoni. Kwa hiyo sasa tutaanza na rais mwingine, na ninapenda kumleta mbele yenu Mheshimiwa Mohamed kutoka nchi ya Mauritania, ambaye pia ni mwenyekiti wa Umoja wa Afrika, na baada ya hapo tutapata Mheshimiwa mfalme kutoka Lesotho, na baada ya hapo tutakuwa na Mheshimiwa Denis Sassou Nguesso kutoka Kongo ambaye atakuwa anakuja hapa. Kwa hiyo tutaanza na hao watatu alafu tutaenda kwa utaratibu huo. Ninapenda kumkaribisha pia ndugu Mheshimiwa Rais wa Djibouti, naye atakuja mbele. Ninapenda pia kumwalika hapa mbele Mheshimiwa Ndayishimiye ambaye ni rais wa Burundi. Kwa makofi yenu mengi sana, napenda kumleta mbele yenu Mheshimiwa Chakwera ambaye yeye ni Mheshimiwa Rais wa Jamhuri ya Malawi. Tulikuwa tumeanza mwanzoni tukitaka kuanza na Mheshimiwa Rais Samia Suluhu Hassan, lakini hatakuwa na sisi katika jopo hili. Kwa ngoja tuanze na swali la kwanza kwa waheshimiwa wetu. Tutaanza na wewe Mheshimiwa Rais Sassou Nguesso. Unafahamu kwamba kuna ukanda katika mradi huu, na wewe binafsi una matangazo au tangazo la kutoa na mawanda yako katika mkutano huu mara baada ya kuwa sehemu ya mkutano huu wa wakuu wa nchi. Asante sana. Kwanza ninapenda kumshukuru Rais Samia Suluhu Hassan, Rais wa Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania, kwa kutukaribisha sisi kunikaribisha mimi kuwa sehemu ya mkutano huu wenye hadhi na heshima kubwa sana. Ninapenda pia kumshukuru yeye binafsi kwa kutukaribisha kwa namna yenye ukarimu wa hali ya juu kweli, ambayo pia ilitolewa sio tu kwangu mimi binafsi, lakini pia kwa wajumbe niliokuja nao, lakini pia kwa ajili ya mafanikio bora kabisa katika kuandaa na kusimamia na kuratibu mkutano huu mkubwa sana wa wakuu wa nchi na serikali. Ninampongeza sana kaka yangu ndugu Adesina, ambaye anajua mijadala ambayo tumekuwa nayo pamoja kuhusiana na hoja hii katika kijiji changu na kwingine. Na pia kwa asili ninapenda kumshukuru Rais wa Benki ya Maendeleo ya Afrika na Benki ya Dunia na rafiki yetu kutoka taasisi ya Rockefeller. Na kwa kweli sisi tupo katika kipindi cha kihistoria hiki. Nataka kusema maneno machache tu katika nafasi yangu kama rais wa kutoka kama rais pia wa bonde la mto Kongo. Nataka kusema kwamba bonde la mto Kongo imejaa fursa karibu za kiwango cha megawati 200,000 ninaweza kusema za umeme au nishati. Pia tuna nishati ya jua ambayo ni kama 7.5 kilowatt kwa kila square mita moja au mita ya mraba moja. Na nchi za bonde hili la Kongo zimeonesha pia au zimetambua kwamba kuna miradi kadhaa ya umeme unaotokana na maji karibu megawati 200,000. Na ninaposema hivyo ninafikiria kuhusu miradi hii mikubwa katika hili bonde la Kongo ambako tunaweza huu ndio mradi ambao tunauzindua leo. Katika mradi tunauzindua leo tutatoa umeme kwa bara la Afrika, ambako pia kutakuwa na usafirishaji na ugavi wa huu umeme kupitia bonde la mto Kongo, na tutaweza kutoa umeme kwa nchi za Afrika. Ninapenda pia kusema ndani ya muundo wa bonde la Kongo tayari tuna mfuko wa nishati wa nchi karibu zote ambazo tayari zimeshajiunganisha pamoja, zikiwa na uwezo wa kufanya sio tu uzalishaji lakini pia kuunganisha na kufanya ugavi wa umeme katika ukanda wote. Ambacho tumekuwa tukikisubiri sasa kiko hapa leo. Ni kuhusu kutekeleza fursa hii kubwa, na hivyo nitatamani kusema kwamba nchi za bonde la mto wa Kongo ziko tayari na zitafanya kazi na AfDB na Benki ya Dunia na wabia wengine na wadau wote mahususi kabisa kwa ajili
ili kuweza kutekeleza mradi huu mkubwa wa bonde la mto Kongo. Nataka kutumia pia umeme wa maji. Nataka kurudia tena kwamba megawati 200,000 ambazo zitaweza kutokana na mradi huu zitakuwepo kwa ajili ya Afrika. Kwa hiyo ninapongeza sana shughuli ya leo kwa ajili ya Afrika, kama ni siku ya kihistoria kwa Afrika. Kama kwa miaka 5 tunaweza kupeleka umeme kwa watu milioni 300 wa bara la Afrika. Ninamwangalia ndugu yangu Hakim. Hii ni ahadi kubwa pia ambayo tunaifanya kwa ajili ya Afrika, lakini pia Benki ya Dunia ndani ya miaka 5 si muda mrefu, nadhani ni muda mfupi sana. Kwa hivyo ninadhani ni changamoto kwamba tunachukua ahadi hii ya kukabiliana na changamoto hii. Kwa hiyo Afrika inategemea nchi za bonde la mto Kongo ili changamoto hii iweze kupata ufumbuzi. Asanteni sana. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Susangos. Kwamba inawezekana kabisa kuhakikisha umeme unapatikana kwa wote ndani ya miaka 5. Kwa hiyo sote tunakubaliana na mwelekeo huo, na anayefuata tunamkaribisha Mheshimiwa na wewe pia unatoa ahadi gani katika mwelekeo huu kwa ajili ya kubadilisha maisha mamilioni ya watu barani Afrika ili waweze kupata huduma ya umeme? Mheshimiwa Mfalme. ninaomba nitumie fursa hii mimi pia kutoa salamu zangu na heshima yangu kwa Mheshimiwa Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, Rais wa Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania. Waheshimiwa wakuu wa nchi na serikali, mwenyekiti wa Umoja wa Afrika, Mheshimiwa Rais wa Benki ya Dunia, Mheshimiwa Rais wa Benki ya Maendeleo ya Afrika, uongozi wa taasisi ya Rockefeller na taasisi zingine zilizopo hapa, mabibi na mabwana. Ningependa pia kuwashukuru waandaaji wa tukio hili, serikali ya Tanzania, Benki ya Dunia, Benki ya Maendeleo ya Afrika kwa kutupa fursa kama nchi kuwepo hapa, kusikiliza na kushirikishana uzoefu wetu katika eneo hili muhimu ambalo ni la msingi katika kuleta mageuzi. Ninaamini kwamba kusanyiko hili ni uthibitisho au shahidi kwa dhamira ya pamoja ya bara zima kushughulikia hitajio moja la muhimu sana na kipaumbele cha nyakati zetu, ambalo ni upatikanaji wa nishati endelevu kwa wote. Waheshimiwa marais, leo tunapokusanyika hapa kuzindua ajenda 300, tumehuisha ahadi zetu kuleta mageuzi kwa maisha ya watu milioni 300 katika Afrika kusini mwa jangwa la Sahara ifikapo 2030. Na ajenda hii 300 sio tu ni mpango wa kawaida, lakini ni mwito mkuu kutengeneza njia ya kuboresha maisha ya watu na kuhakikisha maendeleo endelevu. Kwa kuangalia hii nguzo ya nishati, ajenda 300 itaziangaza nyumba, kaya, mashule, biashara na vituo vya afya na kuwezesha maendeleo ya teknolojia, kuongeza ubunifu na kuhakikisha kuna ukuaji wa uchumi jumuishi katika mataifa yetu. Afrika ikiwemo Lesotho imebarikiwa kuwa na rasilimali nyingi na fursa nyingi, lakini bado zaidi ya watu milioni 600 ambao ni 80% ni sehemu ya upungufu wa nishati duniani, na umaskini huu wa nishati unazuia maendeleo ya kiuchumi, lakini pia inapunguza fursa za elimu na pia huduma za afya. Hata hivyo, katika changamoto hizi kuna fursa ya pekee ya kufafanua upya na kupanga upya mawanda ya nishati katika Afrika kwa kutumia ubunifu na kuhakikisha kwamba kuna uendelevu na usawa katika nishati. Jitihada za Lesotho kuelekea nishati kwa wote inaongozwa na ubunifu na ujumuishi. Tunatumia fursa za nishati jadidifu ambazo ni nyingi, ikiwemo jua, upepo na maji, ili kuweza kutafuta
ufumbuzi wa kiubunifu wa nishati. Waheshimiwa marais, kwetu sisi kama nchi ya Lesotho kuyafikia malengo haya ya mageuzi ya ajenda 300, tunalenga maeneo kadhaa muhimu. Mojawapo kupanua nishati jadidifu kupitia mpango wetu wa nishati jadidifu. Tunajenga mazingira muafaka kwa ajili ya uwekezaji katika nishati safi ambayo itakidhi mahitaji ya majumbani na kuiweka Lesotho kama msafirishaji wa nishati jadidifu nje ya nchi. Nambari 2, kuimarisha mtangamano wa kikanda. Tunaweka kipaumbele katika kudumisha mitandao ya usambazaji wa umeme ili kuharakisha upelekaji wa nishati nje ya mipaka ndani ya eneo la SADC na nje ya hapo. Nambari 3, kuharakisha kupeleka umeme kwenye ngazi za chini kabisa, vijijini kabisa, kwa kutumia rasilimali za ndani za kitaifa na kwa kupata msaada kutoka washirika wa maendeleo na sekta binafsi. Tunapeleka umeme wa jua ili kuweza kuziangaza jamii za vijijini ambazo bado hazina umeme. Nambari 4, kuvutia wawekezaji kutoka sekta binafsi, na kuna mfumo wa kisheria ambao ni wa wazi na wa kimageuzi ambao tumeuanzisha ili kuhakikisha tunaongeza fursa za ushiriki wa sekta binafsi katika nishati. Na mwisho, nambari 5, kuwawezesha jamii za wenyeji, kuhusisha jamii, asasi za kiraia na hiyo inawafanya wamiliki miradi hiyo na ili iwe endelevu. Waheshimiwa marais, ningependa kuhitimisha kwa kutoa tena shukrani zangu za dhati kwa wadau wote kwa kujitoa kwao katika mpango huu muhimu. Kwa pamoja tuiangaze Afrika, jamii moja kila wakati, na tuweze kuzifungua fursa nyingi ambazo zipo katika bara letu kubwa. Ninawashukuru sana. Asante sana mtukufu mfalme kwa ajili ya ahadi hizo kuu, na ninakuja kwako Mheshimiwa Azali Assoumani. Unajua Komoro ina changamoto mbalimbali. Kuna kukatika kwa umeme sana, lakini kuna umeme kidogo. Ni ahadi gani kuu ambazo unazitoa leo ili kuweza kuboresha hali ya mambo na kujenga ushirika na kuvutia wawekezaji ili muweze kutoka katika changamoto hizo? Asante sana mwezeshaji. Mheshimiwa na dada yangu Mheshimiwa Samia, ndugu yangu mwenyekiti wa Umoja wa Afrika, waheshimiwa wakuu wa nchi na serikali, waheshimiwa washiriki, assalamu alaikum. Kama kawaida, ningependa kuanza salamu zangu kwa kutoa shukrani kwa Mheshimiwa Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, Rais wa Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania, na watu wake kwa makaribisho ya kidugu na ukarimu mkubwa ambao tumepewa tukiwa katika ardhi ya Tanzania, katika jiji hili zuri la Dar es Salaam. Na na kwa hatua mbalimbali ambazo zimechukuliwa kufanya makazi yetu hapa yawe ya furaha. Kwa hiyo ningependa pia kupongeza waandaaji wa mkutano huu, na hii inaonyesha matokeo ambayo yanaendana na mategemeo yetu. Uwepo wangu hapa leo wakati wa mkutano huu, na nikiwa hapa katika nchi hii jirani, nchi rafiki, ambao tuna mambo mengi ambayo ni ya urithi wa pamoja. Kwa hiyo hii ni fursa ya kuimarisha ushirikiano wetu. Ningependa pia kumshukuru rafiki yangu Gazwani, Rais Adesina wa Benki ya Maendeleo ya Afrika, na Aje Banka, rais wa Benki ya Dunia, ambao kwa ushirikiano na Tanzania wameweza kuandaa mkutano huo wakuu wa nchi na serikali kuhusu nishati, ambalo ni swala muhimu sana. Mabibi na mabwana, kama ilivyosema, kutana hapa kuona namna ambavyo tunaweza kutafuta suluhisho kwa ajili ya watu milioni 300 ambao watakuwa wapate umeme ifikapo 2030 ili kuboresha maisha ya familia zao na jamii zao, na hasa kuboresha biashara kwa kupata umeme unaohitajika. Naomba mniruhusu kupongeza uwepo wa shirika wetu muhimu, watendaji wa serikali, wawekezaji wa sekta binafsi, na mashirika mbalimbali ambayo yanachangia kwenye maendeleo ya nishati katika bara la Afrika ili kulifikia lengo hili la kutoa umeme kwa watu milioni 300 ifikapo 2030. Hili ni lengo kubwa sana, lakini tunaweza kulifikia. Inategemeana na dhamira zetu na namna ambavyo tunaweza kufanya kazi kwa pamoja ili kupata rasilimali na kufanya na kuleta maendeleo endelevu katika sekta hii, ili kuweza kukabili changamoto hii. Afrika inaendelea na ajenda 230, na tunatakiwa tufanye kazi pamoja kwa kuwa na ushirika wenye ufanisi. Umoja wa visiwa vya Komoro tuna dira ya kuweza kuharakisha mpango huu kwa kuwa na mfumo ambao utaleta ushirikiano kati ya taasisi za umma na sekta binafsi katika sekta hii. Hivi karibuni tumeweza kuzipitia sheria zetu za uwekezaji, ambapo tunarahisisha uwekezaji kutoka sekta binafsi, na hivyo tutakuwa na mifumo yenye ubunifu ya kutoa fedha kwa ajili ya nishati safi, lakini pia nishati ambayo itakuwa ni ya bei nafuu katika nchi yangu kama ilivyo kwa nchi nyingine katika kusini mwa jangwa la Sahara tunalojua, lakini pia tuna nguvu ya joto ardhi ambayo bado hatujaanza kuitumia, lakini kuna matumaini makubwa hasa kwa kushirikiana na nchi jirani. Na nimezungumza na dada yangu ni kwamba ninahitaji kupata uzoefu kutoka kwa Mheshimiwa Ruto, ambao tayari wana umeme wa joto ardhi. Wanao uzoefu ambao tunaweza kutumia ili tuweze kupata umeme kutoka kwenye rasilimali hivyo. Kwa hiyo tumekuwa na mpango wa maendeleo ya umeme katika muda mfupi, na hiyo tutaweza kuyafikia mahitaji ambayo ya 80%, ikiwa ni pamoja na kuboresha mifumo ya usambazaji wa umeme. Gharama inaweza kutumika kutekeleza mpango huu ni kama ni euro milioni 100 ifikapo 2003, na tumekuwa na utafiti umefanywa na Benki ya Dunia na tumejenga ushirika mkubwa na Benki ya Maendeleo ya Afrika. Ninapenda kumshukuru Mheshimiwa Adesina ambaye anatusaidia katika maendeleo haya, lakini pia hasa katika miundombinu ya nishati. Kwa hivyo mkutano huu kwetu ni fursa muhimu ya kuimarisha zaidi ushirika huu, na katika hilo tamko la Dar es Salaam kuhusu nishati ambalo tumelipitisha hapa litasaidia kuvutia sekta binafsi kuwekeza katika nishati jadidifu, na hii ni muhimu katika kulifikia lengo la nishati kwa wote. Ninawashukuru sana na nautakia mradi wetu mafanikio. Asante sana Mheshimiwa kwa ajili ya ahadi zako.
Tunakushukuru sana kwa kuahidi dola milioni 100 hadi mwaka 2030. Nakukaribisha kwako Mheshimiwa Rais Ndayishimiye wa Burundi. Mheshimiwa Rais, nchi yako imekuwa ikiongeza jitihada kwenye ukuaji wa miundombinu ya umeme. Mipango yako ni ipi katika kufikia malengo na mahitaji ya sasa na ya baadaye katika upatikanaji wa umeme na mabadiliko ya mifumo kwa ajili ya uzalishaji umeme jadidifu? Asante sana Mheshimiwa mwendeshaji. Ninapenda kuungana na wazungumzaji waliotangulia ambao wamemshukuru Mheshimiwa Rais dadangu, Rais wa Jamhuri ya Tanzania, na napenda kuwashukuru pia Watanzania kwa makaribisho na ukarimu mkubwa tulioupata mimi na wajumbe wangu tangu tulipowasili hapa Tanzania. Lakini pia ni heshima na taadhima kwangu kuchangia kwenye hoja hii, hasa kuhusiana na nchi yangu ya Burundi, kuhusiana na maono na dira tulionayo juu ya masuala ya umeme, ili umeme uweze kuwafikia wote na wote tuweze kuwa na nishati safi ya kupikia na kuhakikisha kwamba tunakuwa na umeme wa gharama nafuu. Burundi tumekuwa na mradi wa kuhakikisha kwamba tuna umeme na umeme unawafikia watu wote. Kwa sasa tumeendelea na utekelezaji wa lengo namba 7 la malengo endelevu ya Umoja wa Mataifa, na sisi Burundi tuna mipango na mikakati ya ujenzi wa viwanda vipya pamoja na masuala ya uchimbaji wa madini pamoja na ujenzi wa vituo vya afya, shule pamoja na miundombinu ya usafirishaji, na vyote hivi vinalenga kuimarisha ustawi wa watu wetu, na yote haya hayawezi kufanikiwa kama hayatajikita katika kuunganisha na shughuli za uzalishaji wa umeme. Kwa upande wetu Burundi tumeanzisha miradi mikubwa ya uzalishaji wa umeme ambapo kwa sasa tumeshafikia 22% ya upatikanaji wa umeme, na hivyo unaona kwamba tuna ukosefu au uhaba mkubwa wa umeme katika nchi yetu, na kwa hiyo tunalenga kujenga mabwawa ya kuzalisha umeme pamoja na kuwa na umeme wa jua na wa upepo kwa lengo la kuwa na nishati safi na athari za uchafuzi wa mazingira. Tunatumaini kwamba hapo baadaye tutaweza kujenga mabwawa ya umeme kwenye maeneo 30 yenye uwezo wa kuzalisha megawatts 396, lakini pia tutakuwa na vyanzo vingine kama vya nguvu ya umeme ambapo tutakuwa na megawatts 460 kutokana na umeme wa jua, na tunatarajia kuendelea kufanyia kazi miradi mbalimbali ambayo itaipa Burundi megawatts 27 zaidi, na tumekuwa na mradi mwingine tumezindua Burundi wa megawatts 20, na miradi hii imeanza kufanya kazi Burundi, inatuzalishia umeme na tutakuwa na miradi mingine ambao utatoa megawatts 49 ambao unako mbioni kukamilika. Na kuhusiana na njia za usambazaji umeme, tunatarajia kuwa na njia ya kusafishaji umeme kutoka Ethiopia ambayo itafika Burundi, na sasa hivi tupo kwenye mchakato wa kujenga nguzo ambayo tutapata megawatts 200. Na Burundi pia tungependa pia kuchukua umeme Tanzania ili tuweze kupata megawatts 200 katika kwa kupitia ushoroba wa kati. Na tungependa kushukuru serikali ya Tanzania na kwa serikali ya Ethiopia kwa ushirikiano mzuri unaothibitisha kwamba mahusiano ya pande mbili yanatija na manufaa, kwa sababu tutaweza kuunganisha nchi zetu, na tumekuwa na mahusiano ya muda mrefu ambayo ni mazuri na yenye tija kwa pande zote mbili. Burundi ni nchi ndogo na ina watu wengi. Burundi tumejaliwa maji Mwenyezi Mungu ametujalia rasilimali maji za kutosha, maji yanayotiririka milimani. Kwa hiyo tunatarajia kujenga mabwawa mengine kwa ajili ya kuzalisha umeme, na hili linaungwa mkono na jitihada tulizoziweka hasa kwa kutengeneza mazingira ya kisera kuhakikisha kwamba tunafikia ndoto yetu ya kusambaza umeme kwa watu wote ikifika mwaka 2030. Tumekuwa tukihusisha kwa kiasi kikubwa sekta binafsi, na katika muktadha huu kampuni yoyote yenye uwezo wa kuwekeza kwenye nishati itafanya kazi kwa karibu na serikali kwa ajili ya kuhakikisha kwamba tunafikia 70% ya Warundi ambao hawana umeme. Na kwa kushirikiano huu kama vile ajenda ya 300, Benki ya Dunia, IFC, Mega, benki mbalimbali pamoja Umoja wa Ulaya na serikali ya Marekani na wadau wengine wamekuwa wakishirikiana nasi. Jitihada zetu pia zinafungamana na uwekezaji katika sekta ya usafirishaji, kwa sababu Burundi tumeamua kutumia njia ya kiubunifu zaidi ya kuhusisha sekta binafsi ili waweze kushiriki katika miradi ya kusambaza umeme, na tunatarajia kufanya mapitio ya sheria ya umeme na mwaka 2024 tumeanza na mapitio ya sera ya umeme, na tunatumaini kwamba tunaandaa dira ya kitaifa kwa ajili ya nishati safi ya kupikia kwa ajili ya wananchi wanaoishi vijijini, na tunalenga kuanzisha pia miradi mingine midogo midogo ya gridi ndogo kwa ajili ya kuzalisha umeme na kuunganisha na shule, hospitali ili tuweze kuwa na nishati safi ya kupikia kwa mwaka 2030. Hii itakuwa ni sehemu ya kuchangia katika ajenda 300. na ninaamini kwa kupitia malengo haya tutakuwa na miradi midogo midogo ya umeme wa jua, na ninaamini kwamba tutakuwa na sola na paneli za umeme wa jua ambazo zitasambazwa vijijini kwa ajili ya kuzalisha umeme. Na nadhani mtaelewa kwamba malengo yetu ni makubwa sana, lakini tunaamini malengo haya hata kama ni makubwa bado yanatekelezeka, kwa sababu tukifanya kazi pamoja na kwa ushirikiano kila jambo linawezekana. Napendekeza kuwepo kwa mkutano huu, na ninapenda kuunga mkono kwa kuihusisha Burundi kuwa sehemu ya ajenda hii, na ninapenda kuahidi kwamba tutaendelea kutekeleza mikataba hii au makubaliano haya, na tutatekeleza ajenda hii kwa kuzingatia kanuni na sheria, lakini pia kwa kuanzisha miradi mipya, na tutawasilisha mpango wetu wa utekelezaji hadi kufika mwezi Juni mwaka huu. Ni kwa maelezo haya napenda kueleza kwamba ninaunga mkono azimio la Dar es Salaam, na lakini pia ninaahidi kushiriki kwa kuwa sehemu ya jitihada za pamoja, hasa kwenye swala la nishati safi ya kupikia, na tutashirikisha sekta binafsi. Asante sana kwa kutueleza malengo yako na miradi yako hiyo. Nimefurahia sentensi yako kwamba Mwenyezi Mungu ametujalia vyanzo vingi vya maji. Ningependa sasa kumwomba mwakilishi wa Mauritania. Na Mauritania imejaliwa pia kuwa na jua la kutosha kutokana na sehemu kubwa kuwa jangwa, lakini unaweza kaeleza mambo machache rais wa Mauritania kuhusiana na yale ambayo utayafanya. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Rais. Kwa wakati wa ufunguzi wa rais wangu alisisitiza ukweli kwamba nafasi zinaweza zikapatikana kwa ajili ya kukabiliana changamoto mbalimbali. Kwa hiyo tunahitaji kusaidiwa na wataalamu mbalimbali kwa ajili ya kuongezea uwezo katika kuzalisha umeme na kusambaza, lakini pia kuwa ukuaji wa sekta nyingine, na kuweza kuwa na uhimilifu katika uwekezaji na kuhakikisha kwamba kampuni za uzalishaji umeme zinakuwa imara na madhubuti, na kuhakikisha kwamba mpango huu utaweza kusaidia kukabiliana na uhaba wa umeme uliopo, na hivyo tungependa kufikia uwepo wa umeme kwa 100% mwaka 2030. Na sisi ili tuweze kufanikiwa tunapaswa kuongeza jitihada maradufu umeme maeneo ya vijijini, lakini pia kuongeza jitihada mara 3 zaidi katika upatikanaji wa nishati safi ya kupikia, lakini pia kuwekeza katika nishati ya umeme kwa umeme wa jua, lakini pia tutayafanya haya kwa kushirikiana na Benki ya Dunia na Benki ya Maendeleo ya Afrika. Na ili tuweze kutekeleza malengo haya, Mauritania tumefanya maboresho ya kisera, na ili tuweze kuiwezesha sekta yetu iwe na sheria mpya zinazoendana na wakati, lakini pia kuwa na mpango wa kusambaza umeme vijijini na kuwa na uhuria katika biashara na kuruhusu wateja wengi kunufaika na miradi ya umeme. Ili tuweze kufanikiwa hilo, tunatakiwa kurekebisha masuala ya umeme na usambazaji wa umeme vijijini. Asante sana. Asante sana kwa michango yako. Naomba sasa nije kwako Mheshimiwa Rais Chakwera, Rais wa Malawi.
Mheshimiwa Rais, ulirithi changamoto kadhaa ulipochukua ofisi yako, miongoni mwa hizo ikiwa kwamba kuliko kuna viwango vikubwa sana vya umaskini wa nishati. Karibu 18% ya watu hawakuweza kufikia umeme. Kwa kazi ambayo ameweza kuifanya mpaka sasa, nadhani una mpango mkubwa sana kwa ajili ya kubadilisha hali hii. Unaweza ukatumegea sehemu ya uzoefu wako na utashi wako wa kisiasa katika jambo hili. Asante sana. Asante sana. Ni heshima kwangu kutoa tamko hili na uzatiti wa kisiasa mchana huu kwa waheshimiwa wakuu wa nchi na serikali katika mkutano huu wa nishati hapa Dar es Salaam Mission 300. Nataka kuanza kwa kuonesha shukrani zangu kwa Mheshimiwa Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan kwa uongozi uliotukuka katika kuwa mwenyeji wa mkutano huu na wajumbe wetu kwa kuleta tatuzi ambazo zinahusu nishati safi ya kupikia. Afrika inakutana na uhalisia mgumu kwa sababu watu milioni 600 hawana uwezo wa kupata umeme na karibu watu bilioni 1 hawana tatuzi za nishati safi ya kupikia. Hizi tu sio takwimu, lakini ni fursa nyingi ambazo hazijaweza kutambulika. Ni visa ambavyo vya watu ambao hawajaweza kufikia fursa za maendeleo. Hivyo kama viongozi lazima tuweze kufanya jambo kushughulikia changamoto hizi na uhitaji wake. Hivyo waheshimiwa wakuu wa nchi, kwetu Malawi tumeingia katika barabara ya kuhakikisha kwamba nishati inaweza kuwafikia watu wetu wote na kwamba mkakati wetu unawiana na misheni 300, hasa goli namba 6 la mpango wa milenia wa maendeleo wa Umoja wa Mataifa. Utawala wangu tayari umekwisha kuongeza uwezo kutoka 12% nilipoingia miaka 4 iliyopita mpaka kufikia 25% leo. Watu wengi kuweza kufikia umeme. Hivyo wa Malawi wengi wameweza kufikia umeme ndani ya miaka 4 kuliko walivyoweza kufanya katika historia ya nchi yetu tangu tulipopata uhuru. Lakini hatuwezi tu kutulia katika hatua hii ambayo tumefanikiwa. Hapa ni mwanzo tu, lakini tunatakiwa kuongeza kutoka 25% mpaka kufika 70% kufikia 2030, na tunatarajia kuongeza uwezo wa kupata nishati jadidifu kutoka 9% mpaka tuweze kugusa nyumba milioni 2.7
kwa kupitia nishati katika gridi